The Brothers Ghastly, Elder Brother, the Mystic. It's rare for a ghost to be aware that it's dead. It's even more rare for a family of ghosts to persist after they pass on. For a person to become a ghost after dying, they need more than lingering regrets from their past life. There needs to be such a strong emotional attachment to living that the soul lingers after the body has long expired. Even then, most ghosts barely remember their lives once they're dead. They are usually nothing more than remnants, fragments of fading emotions with memories of some vague purpose. It's not uncommon for a ghost to just fade away over time. Without reminders of why they lingered after death, without some purpose, a ghost will eventually forget and just go poof. The Brothers Ghastly are an exception. The four brothers, whose first names are forgotten, have been around for centuries. They tend to possess people whose personality quirks and actions match their own. Whatever it was that the brothers did before their deaths, it had an impact. They remember clearly who they were, why they remained, and their purpose for staying. And, unfortunately for everyone, all four brothers are malicious apparitions. Their goals, what we could piece together of them over time, have always been centered around entertainment. That is their lingering regret and their grand centuries-long goal of being bored, amoral creatures of evil and darkness, and of finding ways to alleviate that boredom. Achieving their goal will result in a massive number of deaths, and all four brothers meeting up, having possessed their victims. Each brother's actions are unique, including how they select their victims and what they do once they've possessed them. Because of this, each brother will receive their own separate report. This report focuses on the second eldest of the Ghastlies, the Mystic. Thought to be the best or worst of them all. Even from an early age, the second eldest Ghastly brother has always been odd. He was always aware of everything that went on around him. He simply knew things about people, things they had never shared with another soul. Before him, no secret was safe. His life was one of success and prosperity, both as an influential businessman and as a collector of the occult. He was the only Ghastly brother not to fall into ruin. Even as the eldest was crippled and his younger brothers either had their work stolen or never made anything for himself, things would just go right for him. Even more so once he figured out that the youngest was responsible for ruining the other brothers. It was the type of thing he could discover about a person to make them do whatever he wanted. And unfortunately for the world, the Mystic was not a good person. If something or someone got in the way of his passions, he would destroy it without mercy. Because his passion was to know the truth of everything. Unlike his brother, the scholar, the Mystic had discovered at a young age that the world was much more vast than his books revealed. He had learned the truth, and it changed him forever. So even if he was the only brother to get married and have kids, at the end of his life, when his wife had passed and his kids had children of their own, he was not content to go into the good night. The Mystic was not ready to die, and the world couldn't do anything to stop him. So, manipulating his brothers with the information he had gathered on them, he used their desire, their desperation, and their fear to force them to perform an abomination of a ritual. And that one night, all four men died, each found with a knife in their throat. It was decided that the youngest, being so unstable, had murdered the rest and taken his own life. Unlike the other brothers, the Mystic was loved by many and mourned by still more. The funeral was large and lavish, with plenty of stories about the life he led and the people he influenced. The Mystic knows because he attended his own funeral, having taken his first body, the best friend of his grandchild. The Mystic was well prepared, unlike his brothers who started off as helpless ghosts, unable to use their frightening abilities. For those sensitive to such things, the ghostly form that was composed of eternally burning fire and parchment simply slid into his new body like it was nothing, sending the soul of its rightful owner to sleep with a dream of living a life of paradise that no one would ever want to wake up from. It was a seamless shift, and the mystic was able to perfectly absorb all of that soul's memories. This made it easy to live the best version of that person's life. People just assumed that attending the funeral of such a great man awoke an ambition to be just as great. And so the mystic lived and learned and expanded his terrifying powers, as his ghostly brothers helplessly watched, tethered to the mortal plane by the ritual they'd performed when alive. This was how it went for many lives. The mystic would live, explore, and thrive, while his brothers could do nothing. It was probably what drove them mad in the end. To be that helpless, to watch someone casually live again and again while you could do nothing. Time passed and something must have happened, or the mystic may have discovered something, because one day he decided to teach his ghostly brothers how to take bodies of their own. He tried to warn them that the ritual to allow them to take bodies would have a downside, but after a long time of not being able to do anything at all, the three brothers all agreed quickly. So one day, during the longest and coldest night of the year, one more ritual was planned. The current body of the mystic was set aflame, and the soul of its owner sent on without even noticing. Next, the ghostly form of the mystic rose from the ashes with a tender sigh. Then the flames that were his body turned a bright blue that was almost white in intensity. The edges of those flames first formed into chains, which then shifted into barbed hooks. And those barbed hooks stabbed into the three remaining brothers, painfully dragging them from the sky into the ground and burying them for a second time. Through all of this, the mystic floated calmly as the brothers screamed and shouted for him to help them, until they were dragged deep underground. Moments passed, and then the mystic's flames settled back into their normal orange-red color. The mystic looked at the chains that stabbed into the ground, and then, with a grab, pulled hard. The three brothers came screaming painfully out of the ground, their ghostly forms still more dim than ever before, while the mystic looked almost solid. In fact, he was no longer floating, but standing on the ground. Then he inhaled, and his body shifted from the ghostly fire into a fully physical human form, his own form from his first life. And rather than the old man he had died as, he now stood in the full glory of his prime. He thanked his brothers for their help and quickly shared the secret of taking over bodies of their own. The brothers realized that they'd been had and swore to kill him. The warrior tried to dive into the mystic's now physical body and take it for himself. But the moment he made contact, he was rejected, popping out of the body instantly. His form was even more pale and gauzy and seemed burned. Seeing this, the other two held back. Grinning, the mystic explained that he had taken what had made them ghosts and made them into something else entirely. Something that requires a host to stick around. Otherwise they would fade and die again, and this time they wouldn't come back. With a snap of his fingers, he yanked again on the barbed chains that were embedded in their bodies. He explained that every host they took would also fuel his new solid body, and they had no choice but to take a host, otherwise they would fade and die. With that said, he went on his way with a whistle, enjoying the fact that he could again whistle with his own lips. This is what makes the mystic the most dangerous. While he can take a host, he doesn't need to. His body is capable of remaining solid and interacting with the physical world. To all physical tests, it looks and behaves biologically as would any normal human body. How is this information known? Unlike the other three brothers, the mystic is happy to share why he is different. He may not divulge the how of it, but those who know of him know that whatever he did to himself, it cannot be undone easily. Even his choice of hosts is fairly easy. He will typically go after people in deep comas with little chance of waking. To the public, it's a miracle that the host awakens. He then lives their lives, often to great success. Taking a host doesn't prevent him from using his occult abilities, summoning fire with a snap of his fingers, even breathing it to defend himself. The mystic is the one most likely to protect his host body and not do anything but live that person's life. all while continuing his research into the curiosities of the unknown world. He can also instantly exorcise a ghost from a body without any issue, especially if it's one of his brothers. In those cases, when he feels like it, he can just drag them out via the chain that is still attached to him. Normally, the mystic would be left alone, but it's the curiosity that makes paying attention to him important. Last time he vanished from observation, he did something. And afterwards, both he and his brothers started participating in the hunt. It's an event that occurs every 3 to 4 years, where he and 2 of the brothers hunt the third. Oftentimes, it's the coward. Sometimes, it's the warrior or the scholar. So far, the mystic has never been hunted, probably due to the nature of the bonds he has with his siblings. It's interesting to note that if the mystic has a host at the time of the hunt, he will leave it. The body will fall into a coma, and he'll take on a temporary host to participate in the hunt. Like the warrior, the mystic will hunt alone, but he has been observed to avoid using his full abilities and instantly end the hunt. And like the scholar, he has experience with the modern world and technology, but is much more creative in his use of it. Most of the time, it's erasing records of the violence and chaos that goes on, or hacking agency computers to distract them from countering the hunt, often by staging the release of another creature or artifact. And like the coward, the mystic has the ability to influence crowds, able to mass erase memories or calm raging emotions as needed. Why he participates is unknown, but there has to be some value to him in the chaos, because after every hunt, the mystic is shown to have grown stronger and stronger. Unfortunately, the mystic cannot be forced out of his chosen host. The possession is perfect and permanent until he decides to leave the body. When he does so, the body tends to fall back into an unwakeable coma, left until the mystic takes back his chosen body. There is also a sign of possession in bright blue, almost glowing eyes, but those can be explained away as contacts. Approaching with the intention of capture risks annoying the mystic. Such a thing could quickly end with the death of the cause of that annoyance. There are currently no wards capable of restraining the mystic. Such items, if they ever did exist, were destroyed by him over the long years of his life. All in all, the architect behind the Brothers Ghastly is a dangerous and complex threat. Approach with caution.